Train and select good officials. June 28th, 2013. Part of the speech at the National Conference on Organizational Work. At present, all party members and people of all ethnic groups in China are making concerted efforts to complete the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects and realize the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation. Confronted with the present complex and unpredictable international situation and arduous domestic tasks of continuing reform and development and maintaining stability, we must be prepared to carry out a great undertaking with many new historic features. This is quoted from the political report to the 18th National Congress of the CPC. With its profound connotations, the idea of new historic features represents an important conclusion that has been made after thoroughly reviewing and analyzing the development trends both at home and abroad. To carry out a great undertaking with many new historic features and to accomplish the goals and tasks set forth at the 18th CPC National Congress, the emphasis should be laid on our party and our officials. This means we must ensure that the party is always the core of leadership during the historic process of developing socialism with Chinese characteristics, and we must build a large contingent of high-caliber officials. Our party has always attached great importance to the selection and appointment of upright and talented people, and has always regarded the selection and appointment of officials as an issue of crucial and fundamental significance to the cause of the party and the people. Employing suitable officials represents the key to governance. As our ancestors said, exaltation of the virtuous is fundamental to governance. Footnote 1, see Note 8, page 68. End of footnote 1. And employing capable officials represents the top priority of governance. Footnote 2, see Ma Guang. Historical events retold as a mirror for government. Xi Jinping. Sima Guang, 1019 to 1086, was a minister and historian in the Northern Song dynasty. This monumental work was China's first comprehensive history in the form of a chronicle. End of footnote 2. In recent years, party committees and organization departments at all levels have implemented the party policy on personnel management and have done a good job of selecting and appointing officials. However, there are still some problems which, if not properly resolved, will demoralize both the party members and the general public. At present, there are three questions that are of great concern: what a good official is, how to become a good official, and how to use the right officials for the right job. Good answers and appropriate solutions to the three questions will be a proof of good management of personnel. First, what is a good official? This should be a question with a clear and ready answer, for there are clear requirements specified in the party constitution. However, some people are confused when they see misconduct in the selection and appointment of officials, when unqualified officials are selected at some localities, and when unqualified officials are still promoted even against regulations. This shows that we need to improve our work in the organization departments. If our selection of officials leads only to confusion over the criteria for good officials, it is obvious that those selected will be only bad examples for the public. we must think more about this issue. Generally speaking, good officials should be of moral integrity and professional competence. However, there were different criteria in different historical periods. During the Revolutionary War period, good officials needed to be loyal to the party, brave and skillful in battle, and unafraid to sacrifice their lives. During the Socialist construction period, good officials needed to be politically and professionally competent. In the early years of the reform and opening up, good officials had to uphold the guideline principles and policies set forth at the third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee, have professional knowledge, and be determined to carry out reforms. At the current stage, we require that good officials be politically reliable, professionally competent, and morally upright, and are trusted by the people. In summary, good officials must be firm in their ideals and convictions, willing to serve the people, diligent in work, ready to take on responsibilities, honest and upright. To be firm in their ideals and convictions means that party officials must cherish the lofty ideal of communism, sincerely believe in Marxism, strive ceaselessly for socialism with Chinese characteristics, and unswervingly uphold the basic theories, guideline, programs, experience, and requirements of the party. To be willing to serve the people means that party officials must act as servants of the people, be loyal to the people, and serve them wholeheartedly. To be diligent in work means that party officials must be dedicated to their work in a down-to-earth, realistic, and pragmatic manner, and take solid and tangible measures to make achievements that can prove their worth in practice, survive the scrutiny of the people, and stand the test of time. To be ready to take on responsibilities means that party officials must adhere to principles with a responsible attitude and have the courage to take resolute actions in the face of major issues of principle, to tackle difficulties head-on in the face of conflicts, to step forward in the face of crises, to admit their share of mistakes, and to resolutely fight against misconduct. To be honest and upright means that party officials must adopt a cautious attitude towards the exercise of power by holding it in respect and keeping it under control in a bid to sustain their political life and make constant efforts to maintain their political integrity against corruption. These requirements might be easy to understand, but they are not so easy to fulfill. They are also important requirements that I have stressed on various occasions for some time now. Here, I would like to lay special emphasis on two aspects: ideals and convictions, and readiness to take on responsibilities, which are relatively outstanding issues facing our officials at the current stage. To be firm in their ideals and convictions is the supreme criterion for good officials. No matter how competent an official is, he cannot be regarded as the sort of good official that we need if he is not firm in his ideals and convictions, does not believe in Marxism nor socialism with Chinese characteristics, is unqualified politically, and cannot weather political storms. Only those who are firm in their ideals and convictions will adopt an unequivocal approach towards major issues of principle, build diamond-hard bodies to withstand any corrosion, remain dauntless when facing political storms, firmly resist all kinds of temptations, and act in a reliable and trustworthy manner at any critical moment. Ideals and convictions refer to people's aspirations. As one of our ancestors said, aspirations can reach any place, however far it is, even over mountains and seas, and it can break through any defense, however tough it is, even as strong as the best armor and shield. Footnote 3. Jin Ying, a collection of maxims. Guyan Lian B. End of footnote 3. This shows how strong and invincible people can be if they only have lofty aspirations. During China's revolution, development, and reform, innumerable party members laid down their lives for the cause of the party and the people. What supported them was the moral strength gained from the utmost importance they attached to their revolutionary ideals. It should be fully admitted that most of our officials are firm in their ideals and convictions, and are politically reliable. Nevertheless, there are some party officials who fail to meet these qualifications. Some are skeptical about communism, considering it a fantasy that will never come true. Some do not believe in Marxism-Leninism, but in ghosts and gods, and seek spiritual solace in feudal superstitions, showing intense interest in fortune-telling, worship of Buddha, and God's advice for solving their problems. Some have little sense of principle, justice, and right and wrong, and perform their duties in a muddle-headed manner. Some even yearn for Western social systems and values, losing their confidence in the future of socialism. And others adopt an equivocal attitude towards political provocations against the leadership of the CPC, the path of socialism, with Chinese characteristics and other matters of principle, passively avoid relevant arguments without the courage to express their opinions, or even deliberately deliver ambiguous messages. Isn't it a monstrous absurdity that party officials, especially high-ranking ones, take no position in the face of major issues of principle, political incidents, and sensitive issues? Some say that officials need to cherish their reputation. This depends on what kind of reputation they are cherishing. Is it a reputation which will be applauded by people with ulterior motives? Or is it a reputation for acting in the interests of the party and the people? A party member should only cherish the latter reputation, and it would be calamitous if he were bent on gaining the former. Why are formalism, bureaucratism, hedonism, and extravagance prevalent nowadays? Why are some officials becoming corrupt or even committing betrayal and defecting to the enemy, ending up as criminals? In the final analysis, it is because they are not firm in their ideals or convictions. I have often said that ideals and convictions are the moral marrow of communists. To be firm in our ideals and convictions will harden our bones, while an absence of ideals and convictions or wavering in our ideals and convictions will lead to fatal moral weakness. Facts have repeatedly proved that the most dangerous moment is when one wavers in or begins to show doubt about one's ideals and convictions. I have long been wondering if we were confronted with a complex situation such as a color revolution, would all our officials act resolutely to safeguard the leadership of the party and the socialist system? I believe most party members and officials are capable of doing so. During the Revolutionary War, whether an official was firm in his ideals and convictions was judged by whether he could risk his life for the cause of the party and the people, and whether he could charge ahead as soon as the bugle sounded. This was a most direct test. There are still tests of life and death at our current stage of peaceful development, but there is a much smaller number of them. As a result, it is really difficult to test whether an official is firm in his ideals and convictions. Even X-rays, CT scans, and MRIs won't help. Nevertheless, there are still ways to test our officials. We need to find out whether they have the political determination in the face of major political challenges, bear in mind the fundamental purpose of the party, perform their duties in an extremely responsible manner, and are the first to bear hardship and the last to enjoy comfort. are ready to take on responsibilities in the face of urgent, difficult, and dangerous tasks, and resist the temptations of power, money, and sex. Such a test cannot be accomplished overnight based on a few tasks that an official fulfills or a few pledges that he makes. It is a process that depends on the official's behavior over a long period, even throughout his life. It is essential that party officials uphold principles and readily take on responsibilities. Avoiding responsibilities is the greatest disgrace for an official. The responsibilities an official takes on demonstrate his breadth of vision, courage, and competence. The greater responsibilities one takes on, the greater undertaking one can accomplish. With the nice guy mentality currently prevailing among some officials, it has become commonplace that many officials dare not criticize errors to take on responsibilities, or are unwilling to do so. Some officials keep on good terms with everybody at the expense of principles, for they are afraid of offending people and losing votes, holding a belief in the vulgar philosophy of more flowers and fewer thorns. They mind nothing but their own business and will do nothing unless their personal interests are affected, being satisfied with muddling along and accomplishing nothing at all. Some officials are not fulfilling their duties properly. They sidestep difficult problems and matters of public concern, argue and pass the buck, and tackle their responsibilities in a perfunctory manner, with their delay turning small problems into big ones and big problems into dreadful troubles. Some officials are smooth characters who handle matters in an overly clever manner, pick easy jobs and posts while shirking hard ones, think of nothing but self-preservation in the face of challenges, rush to claim credit for success, and evade responsibility when any problem crops up. What is more frightening is that some of these officials are popular, even getting on well in official circles, gaining more than others while contributing less. How can the cause of the party and the people proceed if there are a lot of nice guys, people of smooth character, those who always pass the buck to others, or act like weeds atop the wall? These problems are extremely dangerous, and major efforts must be made to solve them. Ultimately, selflessness leads to fearlessness and the courage to take on responsibilities. Selflessness gives us peace of mind. Good officials must attach the utmost importance to their responsibilities, put the principles and cause of the party and the interests of the people first, take an unequivocal and tough stance when addressing problems, perform their duties in an uncomplaining and diligent manner, and see their efforts through to the final result. Sturdy grass withstands high winds. True gold stands the test of fire. For the cause of the party and the people, our officials should be bold enough to think, to carry out initiatives, and to take the consequences, serving as the sturdy grass and the true gold of our times. Of course, being ready to take on responsibilities is for the cause of the party and the people, not for personal fame. Being arrogant and overbearing is not being courageous to take on responsibilities. During the spring and autumn period, there was a senior official named Zheng Kaofu, who served several dukes of the state of Song. He had a reputation for being highly self-disciplined. He had a motto engraved on a ding in his family and ancestral temple, which read, "Head down when I was promoted the first time, back hunched when promoted the second time, and waist bent when promoted the third time. No one insults me if I keep close to the wall when walking along the street. What I need only is this vessel to cook porridge in." Footnote 4. Zhou's Chronicles, Zhou Zhuan. End of footnote 4. I am deeply impressed by this story, Our officials are officials of the party, and their power is granted by the party and the people. Thus they should make ever bolder efforts and show ever greater determination in their work, and conduct themselves in a modest and prudent manner, free from arrogance and rashness. Second, how can one become a good official? Good officials do not emerge spontaneously. To become a good official, both personal effort and training by party organizations are necessary. For officials, their personal effort is essential because this is the decisive internal factor in their personal development. The commitment to the party's cause, theoretical consciousness, and moral standards of an official are not enhanced automatically alongside a longer party standing or a higher post. Rather, the enhancement requires lifelong endeavors. To become a good official, one needs to constantly remold one's subjective world and strengthen one's commitment to the party and moral refinement. One needs to stringently comply with the party constitution and the requirements for party members, being strict with oneself and lenient with others. Footnote 5. Collection of ancient texts. Shangshu. End of footnote 5. Party members must always behave in a proper manner, scrutinize themselves, keep alert to resist the myriad temptations of the dazzling world, and be honest and hardworking, clean and upright. Learning is the ladder of progress. Officials need to be good at learning and thinking. Conscientiously study Marxist theories, especially the theoretical system of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Focus on the standpoints, viewpoints, and methods of these theories, and improve their capacity for strategic, innovative, dialectical, and bottom-line thinking, so that they are able to correctly judge contemporary situations and remain clear-headed and determined politically. They also need to enrich their knowledge of various subjects, improve their structure of learning, and accumulate experiences so as to lay a solid foundation for the performance of their duties. In addition to learning, good officials also need to focus on practice. Hearing is not as good as seeing, and seeing is not as good as experiencing. Footnote 6. Liu Xiang, Garden of Stories, Shuo Yuan. End of footnote 6. Knowledge and experience are like the two wings of an eagle, which can fly high and far only if it wants to see the outside world and brave storms. The harsher the conditions and the more the difficulties, the more an official will be tempered. Officials should go to the grassroots to see the real situation and communicate with the people, and then they will be able to refine themselves and improve their abilities in their part of the work for reform and opening up, stability, and serving the people. Good officials need to be trained by party organizations. We need to focus more on the training of officials along with the changes of the circumstances and the development of the cause of the party and the people. In this training, we must pay more attention to education on commitment to the party, virtue and morality, awareness about the party's ultimate goal, and a sense of serving the people. We also need to strengthen the training of officials in practical circumstances to facilitate their progress. Training in practical circumstances is not a way to get gilded, nor is it a routine process before promotion. If this is the case, officials won't devote themselves wholeheartedly to the training and won't keep in close touch with the people. The training will only be a show. Moreover, we need to enhance supervision of officials' conduct on a regular basis. The exercise of power without supervision will definitely lead to corruption. This is an axiomatic law. It is not an easy process to train an official, so necessary measures should be adopted to better manage and supervise officials, to keep them on the alert as if they were treading on thin ice or standing on the edge of an abyss. Heart-to-heart talks with officials are needed so that their shortcomings are pointed out in time and their enthusiasm is encouraged. This is a good tradition that we need to carry on. Third, how can we ensure officials' good performance? To employ good officials after they are adequately trained is the key. What is the purpose of training if we don't employ good officials or don't let them play their role? Employment of a competent person will attract more competent people, and all the others will take them as examples. The kind of officials we employ is a political weather vane which determines the conduct of our officials and even the conduct of the whole party. It must be noted that some localities and departments are not adopting a correct approach to appointing officials. Some opportunistic officials with doubtful integrity and insufficient professional competence get promoted frequently, while those who devote themselves to work and do not build social connections for promotion do not have such chances. This has given rise to strong discontent among officials and the general public. Party committees and organization departments at all levels need to adhere to the principle that the party should supervise the performance of officials and the correct approach to official appointment. Select officials on the basis of both moral integrity and professional competence, with priority given to the former. Try to select and appoint virtuous and competent people in a timely manner, and place them in suitable posts according to their abilities. Only in this way can good and competent officials be selected and employed. To employ officials, the most important thing is to know them. If we do not know them thoroughly and accurately enough, we may employ them in an inappropriate way. Having no idea of a person's weakness and strength, the weak part of the strength or the strong part of the weakness, we have no ground for appointing or even training that person. Footnote 7. Wei Yuan, Collected Works of Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan Zhi. End of footnote 7. We cannot judge an official by impression or personal feeling. We must have a good system and methods to evaluate officials, with reflections through various channels, at various levels, and from various perspectives. We need to keep a close watch on officials and observe their approach to major issues, their concern for the people, their moral conduct, their attitude towards fame and fortune, their realm of thought, their ways of handling matters and results, and their work competence. The evaluation and observation of officials are done in day-to-day work, but the best time is at major events and critical moments. To understand good music only after singing 1,000 songs, to find a fine sword only after appreciating 1,000 swords. Footnote 8. Liu Xie, Carving a Dragon with a Literary Mind. Wen Xin Diao Long. Liu Xie, circa 465 to circa 532, was a literary critic of the state of Liang during the southern dynasties. Carving a Dragon with a Literary Mind is a work on literary theory in ancient China. End of footnote 8. The performance of an official is reflected in his work, and his reputation is gained from the public. So we need to go to the grassroots to hear opinions from the people. and judge an official's moral conduct in big events as well as in small matters. To employ good officials, we must observe their performance and moral conduct on an overall, long-term, and logical basis. Those who are competent, have distinctive personalities, are ready to take on responsibilities, and dare to offend some people for the sake of upholding principles may receive different comments. Party organizations must give them a correct evaluation. It is also difficult to accurately assess the performance of officials. We need to improve the methods and means of assessment. In the performance appraisal of officials, we should pay equal attention to economic growth and the original economic basis, and to both tangible and intangible achievements, and integrate indicators and achievements with regard to the improvement of the people's livelihood, social progress, and the ecological environment. We must no longer judge the performance of officials merely by GDP growth rates. Some officials tend to make abrupt decisions, start projects without second thoughts, and finally leave a mess behind, and they still get promoted without being held accountable. We cannot let it happen anymore. I have said that we need to implement responsibility systems to address such issues and hold the relevant officials accountable throughout their lifetime. Organization Department of the Party Central Committee should see to this immediately. To employ good officials, we need to take a scientific approach and appoint the right person at the right time for the right position. Currently, some localities tend to appoint officials according to seniority or for seeking balance rather than in accordance with their merits, suitability, or professional abilities. As a result, the appointed officials find it difficult to perform their duties, thus leaving problems unsolved and work unaccomplished. What kind of official to appoint and what position is suitable for him should be part of the consideration of the requirement of the work. We shouldn't appoint an official simply because there is a post, or take it as a means of reward. A good horse can run along dangerous paths but cannot plow the fields like an ox. A strong cart can carry heavy loads but cannot cross rivers like a boat. We should have a good sense of acquiring talented people through different channels and by different methods. Treat them as treasures and let them fully display their abilities. Only by so doing will large numbers of good officials emerge to contribute their wisdom and knowledge. There is a phenomenon that we must notice. To judge an official on his work performance in a locality or unit, people have their own comments. Practice has its proof, and leaders are clear in mind, but the final appointment is often not according to the actual needs, and usually disappoints people. The reason is the selfishness of some leading officials, relationshipism, or some hidden rules that people dodge behind. Influenced by these unhealthy factors, officials are no longer appointed on their merits, but by favoritism or by seeking personal gain. Officials and the public abhor this practice very much, so we should make resolute efforts to change it and make it a clean process. Appendix. Man of the People. Profile of Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the CPC. It was a pleasant early morning on December 8th, 2012, in a verdant park known as Lianhua Shan, Lotus Flower Mountain, in Shenzhen, in South China's Guangdong province. The park was not cordoned off to the public. There was no red carpet, nor were there people waving welcoming banners. None of the early risers doing their usual morning exercises were expecting to encounter a notable figure. A middle-aged man in a dark suit and an open-necked white shirt laid a wreath at a statue of the late Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping. Then he circulated among the crowd, engaging in casual conversation. The visitor was Xi Jinping, elected General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee only 24 days previously. During his visit to Guangdong, Xi called on the entire party and all of the people of China to continue supporting the path of reform and opening up, and focus on pursuing reform in a more systematic, integrated, and coordinated way. He vowed that there would be no slowdown in reform and opening up. In his first visit outside Beijing as the top CPC leader, Xi went to Guangdong, the wellspring of China's reform and opening up, following the route Deng had taken 20 years earlier, when the country found itself at a crossroads. Media reports characterize Xi as a leader who has brought about a fresh breeze through the country's political life, committed to reform and opening up, and determined to lead the nation in realizing the Chinese dream. Xi, who was elected to his new role at the first plenary session of the 18th CPC Central Committee on November 15, 2012, is the first top party leader to have been born after 1949, the year the People's Republic of China, PRC, was founded. He now leads the 91-year-old CPC, the world's largest political party, with more than 82 million members, as it rules over China, the world's second largest economy. The whole country and the world beyond are watching Xi with interests and expectations. How will he lead the CPC to better serve the people? How will he lead China's 1.3 billion people to build a moderately prosperous society in all respects by the 100th anniversary of the founding of the CPC in 2021? Furthermore, how will he lead the people to achieve the goal of building an affluent, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, and harmonious modern socialist country by the time the PRC marks its centennial in 2049? How will he lead the country to make its due contribution to world peace and development? As he met the press on November 15th, right after the closing of the first plenum, Xi summed up the CPC's mission as comprising three responsibilities: to the nation, to the people, and to the party. Advocate of the Chinese dream. The people aspire to a decent life. That is what we are fighting for, remarked Xi to the press in his first public speech as CPC General Secretary. Shortly after taking office, Xi and the other 6 members of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee visited the exhibition The Road to Rejuvenation at the National Museum of China. The display illustrated the huge challenges China has surmounted on the road to national revival since 1840. Nowadays, everyone is talking about the Chinese dream, he noted. In my view, realizing the great renewal of the Chinese nation is the greatest dream in modern history. To achieve this goal, Xi has clarified his position on various aspects of the country's development. On economic development, Xi opposes blind focus on growth and upholds the principle of scientific development, which seeks sustainability in terms of both resources and the environment. On political development, he stresses the idea that all power belongs to the people and calls for active and steady political reform while keeping to the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics. He also stresses the rule of law and exercising state power in accordance with the Constitution. On cultural development, he aspires to develop human talent and foster a Chinese national spirit, especially as typified by the words of the national anthem. We will use our flesh and blood to build our new Great Wall. On social development, he stresses that we must be fully aware of the fact that we are in the primary stage of socialism. We should make continuous efforts to ensure and improve the people's standard of living through economic development. He also supports building a harmonious society and realizing a good life for the people based on hard work, while taking into consideration the country's actual circumstances. He calls for joint efforts from all sectors in building a harmonious society. On ecological progress, he emphasizes a national strategy of resource conservation, environmental protection, and a sustainable pattern of development. From the lowest plateau in northwest to the southeast coast of China, from distant localities to the central leadership, Xi has had a well-rounded political career and has developed a deep understanding of the conditions of his country and its people. Xi worked for decades in several localities, including Shanghai and the provinces of Shanxi, Hebei, Fujian, Zhejiang, and as a party or government official, as well as a period spent serving in the army before he came to Beijing to chair the routine work of the CPC Secretariat. He was fully aware of the importance of strengthening the party and regularly emphasized that the party must discipline itself according to strict standards. Under him, a number of intra-party rules and regulations were enacted. He has repeatedly stressed that the party must supervise its own conduct and run itself with strict discipline. At the first study session of the new political bureau, he said, "Worms can only grow in something rotten." Footnote 1. See Note 24, page 22. End of footnote 1. A large number of facts have proved that corruption is now raging. If it is not curbed, our party and our country will surely be doomed. We must keep on high alert. Xi pays great attention to investigation, holding that investigation should be carried out throughout the decision-making process. He has also stressed that all officials should go to the grassroots communities and find out what the people think and want, and solve the problems the people are most concerned with. Beginning in 2008, he served as the head of the leading group in charge of the nationwide study and implementation of the scientific outlook on development within the party. This 18-month program helped build consensus behind the scientific outlook on development on the part of the whole party and the country at large, and make the concept a driving force for economic and social development. He also led a group of people in drafting the 17th CPC Central Committee's report to the 18th CPC National Congress, as well as the amendment to the CPC Constitution, both of which were adopted at the Congress and have become important guidelines for China's future. Xi has had a connection with the armed forces since his early days. After graduating from university, He worked at the General Office of the Central Military Commission, CMC, of the CPC for 3 years, a job that gave him a deep affection for the armed forces. In the following years, he served concurrently as party chief for military sub-areas, in addition to holding his party and government titles. In the course of this, he became familiar with grassroots military affairs. He became CMC vice chairman in 2010 and was named CMC chairman at the first plenary session of the 18th CPC Central Committee in November 2012. She is also familiar with issues related to Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. His 17-year service in Fujian gave him a deep understanding of Taiwan and enterprises from Taiwan. The first Taiwan Chamber of Commerce on the mainland was established in Xiamen, when he worked in Fujian. He solved many problems for people from Taiwan and has subsequently been seen as a good friend by many of them. As a member of the central leadership, Xi was in charge of Hong Kong and Macau affairs. He helped work out a number of important policies on the long-term stability and prosperity of the two special administrative regions. In 2008 and 2009, when Hong Kong and Macau were seriously hit by the international financial crisis, Xi visited both regions to show his support. He encouraged the local people, saying, "There are always more means than difficulties as long as we have firm resolve." In 2012, when he talked to deputies to the NPC and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, from Hong Kong and Macau at the annual 2 sessions. Footnote 2. The 2 sessions refer to the annual sessions of the National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. End of footnote 2. He quoted a line from a classic. "If brothers are of the same mind, their edge can cut through metal." Footnote 3. See Note 5, page 265. End of footnote 3. To call on the people of Hong Kong and Macau to stick together, to strive for a better life. In 2008, Xi was tasked with heading the preparations for Beijing's much-anticipated 2008 Olympic Games and the subsequent Paralympics, playing a key role in China's hosting of these great events. Regarding the people as parents, Xi has expressed his deep regard for the people on many occasions. The importance of the people in the minds of officials determines the importance of officials in the minds of the people. His love for the people stems from his unique upbringing. Though son of Shi Jinping, a communist revolutionary and former vice premier, Xi Jinping's youth was not spent in comfort. Beginning in 1962, when his father was wronged and disgraced, Xi experienced tough times. During the Cultural Revolution, he suffered public humiliation and hunger, experienced homelessness, and was even held in custody on one occasion. At the age of 16, he volunteered to live and work in a small village named Liangjiahe in Yanchuan County in northwest China's Shanxi province as an educated youth. That area, part of the Loess Plateau, was where the communist revolutionaries, including his father, had risen to found the PRC. Life there was tough for an urban youth. In the beginning, fleas troubled him so badly he could hardly sleep. In the Shanxi countryside, he had to do all sorts of hard labor, carrying manure, hauling a coal cart, farming, and building dikes. He was able to walk for 5 kilometers on a mountainous path with 2 dangling baskets filled with almost 100 kilograms of wheat on a shoulder pole. Locals called him a tough boy. As time passed, the tough work became easier. Xi grew into a capable and hard-working young man in the eyes of the villagers. Through gaining their trust, he was elected village party chief. He led the farmers to reinforce the riverbank in the slack season of winter in a bid to prevent erosion, organized a small cooperative of blacksmiths in the village to make farming tools, and built a methane tank for gathering cooking gas, the first in landlocked Shanxi. On one occasion, he was awarded a motorized tricycle after being named a model-educated youth. However, he exchanged the tricycle for a walking tractor, a flour milling machine, a wheat winnowing machine, and a water pump to benefit the villagers. Although he did not attend school, Xi never stopped reading. He brought a case of books to the village and, as recalled by villagers of Liangjihai, he was always reading books as thick as bricks while herding sheep on mountain slopes or under a kerosene lamp at night. He formed close ties with the villagers during his 7 years in the province. After being recommended for enrollment at Tsinghua University in 1975, all the villagers lined up to bid him farewell, and a dozen young men walked more than 30 kilometers to accompany him to the county seat for his trip back to Beijing. Xi has never forgotten the villagers of his Shanxi home. Even after he left, he helped the village get access to electric power, build a bridge, and renovate a primary school. When he was party chief of Fuzhou City, he returned to the village, calling on people door to door. He gave some money to senior villagers and provided school children with new school bags, school supplies, and alarm clocks. When a farmer friend got sick, Xi, then a senior provincial official of Fujian, brought him to Fujian at Xi's own expense for better medical treatment. Years of toiling alongside the villagers allowed him to get to know the countryside and farmers well. Xi has said that the 2 groups of people who gave him the greatest help in his life were revolutionary veterans and the folk from the Shanxi village where he once lived. He arrived at the village as a slightly lost teenager and left as a 22-year-old man determined to do something for the people. Xi's affection for the common people influenced him in a number of critical decisions. In the 1980s, while many of his contemporaries opted to do business or went to study abroad, Xi gave up a comfortable office job in Beijing and went to work as the deputy secretary of the party committee of a small and poverty-stricken county of Zhengding in North China's Hebei province. In 1981, the annual per capita income of this county was less than renminbi 150. At first, local people doubted this young man's ability. Xi lived in his office and had meals at the canteen. He was often seen chatting with people while having a simple meal under a tree. Frequently, he rode a bicycle to villages to find out how the farmers fared. Thus, he won the local people's trust. In 1988, he became party secretary of Ningda Prefecture in southeast China's Fujian province, one of the poorest parts of the country at that time. The needs of the people weighed heavily on Xi's heart, and visits to grassroots units were a regular part of his schedule. During his tenure at Ningde, he often traveled for days on mountain roads to reach the farthest corners of the prefecture. The roads were so rough that he had to take breaks on the way to ease the pain in his back. He once walked for nearly 5 hours on a rugged mountain road to get to a village called Sha, which was not accessible by highway. There he received a warm welcome from the villagers, who said that Xi was the highest-ranking official who had ever come to the village. He also helped thousands of farmers in Ningde renovate dilapidated thatched huts and built houses for fishermen who used to live on boats. When working as party secretary of Fuzhou, capital of Fujian province, he took the lead in the country in establishing a system for officials to meet petitioners face to face. He introduced the same system in other places where he served later. At one point, he and other senior officials in Fuzhou met with more than 700 petitioners in 2 days and solved many of their problems on the spot or set a time limit to find solutions. Before Chinese New Year in 2005, while working in East China's Zhejiang province, he visited a coal mine named Chongguang, went down nearly 1,000 meters underground, then walked more than 1,500 meters along a narrow and inclined shaft to visit miners and see their working conditions. Xi attaches great importance to communication with the people via news media. He contributed many articles to a popular column of Zhejiang Daily, using the pen name Zhe Xin. In his 232 articles, he discussed everyday problems of interest to ordinary people. His writings were very popular, and people praised him as using plain words to discuss big problems. A mild person, Xi is very tough in disciplining officials and preventing them from acting against the interests of the public. In an investigation into illegal housing construction by officials in Ningde, he grew angry and pounded the table as he asked, "Will we offend a few hundred officials, or will we fail millions of people?" A number of officials in Zhejiang were punished for irregular conduct during his tenure. Xi is a man of compassion. On each Chinese New Year, he sends greetings to his teachers. He provided the only car of the Zhengding Party Committee for the use by war veterans and built a clinic and a club especially for them. When in Fuzhou, he supported children from poor families to go to school with money from his own pocket. His work style earned him the nickname Secretary of the People. Officials should love the people in the way they love their parents, work for their benefit, and lead them to prosperity, he once said. Leader with foresight. Xi regularly shows a strong sense of responsibility towards the future of the nation and has declared his determination to press forward with reform and opening up. Throughout his political career, his foresight and resolve have been apparent, as well as his willingness to sacrifice personal gain and transient fame for a greater cause. When working in Xiamen, a coastal city in Fujian and one of the special development zones in China, he took charge of drafting the socio-economic development strategy of Xiamen 1985 to 2000, which laid a solid foundation for the city's urban planning and future economic development. He was put in charge of financial reform and served as head of an administrative body of the Special Development Zone. Under his leadership, a number of policies and measures to advance the reform and opening up of Xiamen were enacted. Xi was active in enabling Xiamen to be listed as a city specifically designated in the state plan, which was approved and benefited the city long after he had left the province. When working in Zhengding, Hebei province, he saw a potential business opportunity when he learned that the crew of A Dream of Red Mansions, a popular classic novel turned TV drama, was looking for a filming location. He proposed building in Zhengding a large residential compound known as the Wrong Mansion that featured in the novel. The compound, which was used for TV shooting, later became a tourist attraction. Tourist income from the Wrong Mansion exceeded renminbi 10 million the year it was completed, more than paying back the initial investment. The site has been used as the set for more than 170 movies and TV dramas, with up to 1.3 million tourists every year. In Fuzhou, after intense deliberation, he and his colleagues devised the Fuzhou 3, 8, and 20-year development strategy. All the main targets set by the strategy were achieved on time, and a number of enterprises that were set up or brought to Fuzhou when Xi served there remain industry leaders today, playing a significant role in the city's development over the past 2 decades. Working as Fujian governor, he was the first in the country to launch a campaign to crack down on food wastage and ensure food security. In 1999, he took the lead in putting forward the idea of improving IT infrastructure and introducing information technology to help the public. In 2010, Fujian became the first province in China where all hospitals were linked by computer networks, and digital medical cards were issued to everyone for medical care. In 2002, Fujian launched the reform of the collective forest property right system, the first of its kind in the country. Also, during Xi's tenure, Fujian was among the first provinces in China to adopt special policies to restore the ecological balance and protect the environment. This has made Fujian the province with the best water and air quality, as well as the best ecology and environment in the country. In 2002, Xi was transferred to Zhejiang province, one of the most economically developed provinces in China. There, Xi made extensive fact-finding trips, and in 2003 formulated and put into practice the strategy of making full use of 8 advantages and implementing 8 major measures, laying a solid foundation for the province's future development. Footnote 4. In July 2003, the 4th plenary enlarged session of the 11th CPC Zhejiang Provincial Committee proposed to make full use of the province's 8 advantages for development and implement 8 measures for its future growth. End of footnote 4. He initiated local industrial restructuring, transforming the province's extensive and inefficient growth pattern, and encouraged leading enterprises from outside the province to invest in Zhejiang. In addition, he proposed a development mode that would give equal weight to both manufacturing and commerce, a mode particularly suited to the local conditions in Zhejiang. He also supported local companies' efforts to expand overseas, as well as startups by ordinary citizens. At the same time, he encouraged cooperation between Zhejiang and neighboring Shanghai and Jiangsu province, in order to tap their potential and build an integrated economic powerhouse. In 2004, under Xi's leadership, Zhejiang made an attempt to improve community-level democracy. Villages set up special committees to supervise village party committees and administrative committees on public affairs, a move that was welcomed by the public. Village supervision committees, which sprang from the Zhejiang model, were later introduced in an amendment to the Organic Law of Villagers' Committees in 2010 by the MPC Standing Committee, the top Chinese legislature. Xi called on the people of Zhejiang to rely on themselves in developing the local economy. He was fully aware that the people of Zhejiang were business-minded and had a proud tradition of running businesses. Given that Zhejiang lacked natural resources, people had to work harder and find opportunities in other places, such as Shanghai and Jiangsu. A number of measures taken under Xi's leadership enormously promoted the socioeconomic development not only in Zhejiang, but also the whole area of the Yangtze River Delta. Footnote 5. The Yangtze River Delta is one of China's major economic regions, mainly covering Shanghai and the provinces of Jiangsu and Zhejiang. End of footnote 5. Shanghai was Xi's last local post before he was promoted to the central leadership. Despite a relatively short term in the country's financial hub, he left his mark by promoting the economic integration of the Yangtze River Delta and enhancing Shanghai's leading role in the region. Xi added enlightened, sagacious, open-minded, and modest to the official wording of the Shanghai city motto, which previously had simply read inclusive and sublime. This was intended to capture the essence of the city. Media in Shanghai noted that these modifications helped better present Shanghai to the rest of the world. The changes also attracted attention from further afield. Only by hard work can we get to the fore. Empty talk harms the country, while hard work makes it flourish, Xi remarked during his visit to the Road to Rejuvenation exhibition in Beijing on the 15th day after being elected as the CPC's new helmsman. To put hard work in place, Xi presided over a meeting of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee that adopted 8 rules to improve the party's conduct and its ties with the people. The rules include more contact with the public, traveling light with a small entourage, using fewer traffic controls, shortening meetings and speeches, and practicing economy. The new rules have elicited a positive response both at home and abroad. Only by hard work can we get to the fore, he once commented. He demands concrete efforts to tackle issues that affect people most. He believes that without hard work, the best blueprint will be of no use. When he served in Zhengding County, Xi said that developing its human resources was the key to poverty reduction and local economic development. He invited professionals to the county and drew up recruitment advertisements for talented people from across the country. On a winter's day in 1983, he traveled to Shijiazhuang, the provincial seat of Hebei, to invite an expert in medicinal cosmetics to work in Zhengding. Without a full address for the expert, he went from door to door asking for help and finally found him that evening by shouting his name in the street near his home. Xi and the expert talked until midnight, and the man finally accepted the offer. He later created more than renminbi 300,000 in revenues for the county in his first year. The same year, Xi decided to publish a document listing 9 ways to recruit talented people, something that was rare at the time and became a front-page story in the Hebei Daily. He wrote more than 100 letters to experts and scholars, as well as to colleagues in colleges and research institutions, and paid visits to dozens of experts. Within 2 years, Jinping attracted 683 professionals and hired 53 well-known experts as economic counselors. Together with his colleague, Lu Yuan, then Deputy Party Secretary of Jinping, and in the face of strong opposition, Xi told superior authorities about the excessive burden faced by the country due to compulsory grain purchases. The issue was eventually resolved and the heavy burden on the local people was lifted. In Ningde, Xi was also pragmatic and realistic. He pooled resources to encourage cultivation of the large yellow croaker, a local specialty, and thereby greatly increased the income of local fishermen. He also ordered party and government officials to be easily accessible to the people. When serving in Fuzhou, he advocated the principle of special procedures for special issues and do things right away to make government agencies more efficient. This principle attracted numerous companies from Taiwan and helped boost the local economy. In 1992, he took the lead in the country to apply the management mode of foreign-funded enterprises to 12 large and medium-sized state-owned enterprises as a pilot project. He also proposed the compilation of 2 handbooks on government work, helping local residents and overseas business people in their work and daily life. In 2000, Xi launched an initiative throughout Fujian to make government agencies more efficient. He proposed changes in government functions and procedures to reduce the amount of documentation that required government approval. By the end of 2001, 606 items had been eliminated, more than 40% of the total. In 2001, Fujian became the first province in China to formulate and implement a policy aimed at making government affairs public. Detailed implementation rules were made to require all counties, cities, and districts in the province to make their administrative work transparent. A warning system was established to tighten oversight over all government agencies. In addition, a performance complaint center was set up so that people could voice their criticisms and suggestions. In 2002, Xi published an article in a major national newspaper on the Xinjiang experience, which advocated market-oriented development, stressed the role of local advantages, called for improvement of government services, and emphasized the importance of the private economy in the development of the county. Also in 2002, he published another article publicizing Nanping City's experience of sending officials and technicians to work in villages. This practice was later extended from Nanping throughout the province, enhancing ties between officials and farmers and helping officials to become more oriented towards grassroots results. In Zhejiang, Xi stressed provincial development in the fields of public security, the environment, culture, the rule of law, and the marine economy. To achieve these goals, he carried out individual case studies and attended to general planning. In order to understand how individual localities were affected by provincial policies, he paid 5 visits to the mountain village called Xiajiang in underdeveloped Chunan County in southwest Zhejiang in less than 2 years. Located deep in the mountains, the village is some 60 kilometers from the county seat. During each visit, Xi chatted with villagers at their homes and in the fields. On one occasion, he inspected construction of a methane tank. He said that 30 years earlier, When he had lived in a village, he had been an expert in building methane tanks. Xi encouraged villagers to manage the tanks properly and make the village a role model in making use of methane. He paid special attention to the marine economy. In December 2002, he put forward the objective of building Zhejiang into a province with a strong marine economy, and followed up his general proposal with specific plans and measures to realize this objective. The marine economy in Zhejiang has since developed quickly with an annual growth of 19.3%. By 2005, it accounted for nearly 8% of the GDP of Zhejiang. Xi pushed for the integration of the Ningbo and Zhoushan harbors. In 2006, the joint Ningbo-Zhoushan harbor recorded a cargo throughput of 420 million tons, ranking second in China and among the world's top 3. He also pressed on with the construction of the Hangzhou Bay Bridge, an iconic sea crossing in China and at one time the world's longest sea bridge. In 2003, Xi proposed that rural communities should be managed more like urban communities, and every effort should be made to narrow the urban-rural gap in quality of life. Zhejiang realized its development targets one after another during Xi's tenure. The province had the highest rating in ecology and the environment among all provincial-level regions in 2005. In 2006, almost 95% of the public were satisfied with the province's public security, making Zhejiang one of the safest provinces in the country. During his service in Zhejiang, the province's GDP exceeded renminbi 1 trillion in 2004, and its annual per capita GDP exceeded US $3,000 in 2005 and stood at nearly US $4,000 in 2006. The province ranked 4th in sustainable development in 2006, after Shanghai, Beijing, and Tianjin. Furthermore, all the counties and townships in the province that had been officially classified as poverty-stricken were raised out of poverty during that period. In 2007, Xi was appointed secretary of the CPC Shanghai Municipal Committee. In the first month after his appointment, Xi began research projects into standards of living, development, the Shanghai World Expo, and the fight against corruption. Despite difficulties and obstacles in the metropolis, Xi convened in the 9th Shanghai Municipal Congress of the CPC, greatly invigorating local officials, rebuilding Shanghai's image, and setting forth a blueprint for Shanghai for the next 5 years. Xi always believes that a county party chief should visit all the villages in the county, a city party chief, all the districts and townships in the city, and a provincial party chief, all the counties and cities in the province. He visited all the villages in Jingding. In Ningde, he visited 9 counties during the first 3 months and traveled to most of the remaining townships later on. After being transferred to Zhejiang in 2002, he visited all 90 counties in just over a year. During his tenure in Shanghai, he visited all 19 districts and counties in 7 months. After he came to work with the central leadership, he visited all the 31 provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities directly under the central government on the mainland. Man with a world vision. During a recent meeting with foreign experts working in China, Xi said that China, as a responsible country, will not only manage its own affairs but also properly handle its relations with the rest of the world so as to foster a more favorable external environment and make a greater contribution to world peace and development. China needs to know more about the rest of the world, and the rest of the world also needs to know more about China, Xi said. Whether working at the local level or with the central leadership, Xi has always valued international exchanges and making foreign friends. He takes every opportunity to meet foreign guests visiting China. Before Xi came to work with the central leadership, he had visited over 60 countries and met a great number of foreign visitors. In the past 5 years, he has traveled to more than 40 countries and regions across 5 continents and has had extensive contacts with people of all walks of life. He explains frankly and honestly to foreign friends how the Chinese people view their own country and the outside world, and is willing to listen to them as well. In the eyes of many foreign dignitaries, Xi is a confident, pragmatic, sagacious, and good-humored leader. He often tells foreign visitors that the global community is becoming increasingly integrated and shares a common destiny. China's continuous rapid development depends on world peace and development. It also provides opportunities for other countries to develop, so together we can achieve mutually beneficial results and share benefits through mutual respect and pragmatic cooperation. At the World Peace Forum organized by Tsinghua University in July 2012, Xi noted that a country must let others develop while seeking its own development, must let others feel secure while seeking its own security, must let others live better while aspiring to live better itself. In a meeting with Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, Xi said that not every strong country would seek hegemony. Footnote 6. Lee Kuan Yew was founder and first premier, 1965 to 1990, of the Republic of Singapore. End of footnote 6. China would stick to the path of peaceful development, a mutually beneficial strategy and opening up, and the pledge of never seeking hegemony. China would pass its commitment from generation to generation. Xi's foreign visits have sent out a signal that countries should work together to establish a more equal and balanced global partnership so as to safeguard the common interests of all of humanity and make the earth a better place. During his 5-day visit to the U.S. in 2012, Xi attended 27 events and engaged in exchanges with President Obama and other U.S. politicians and the public alike. As long as both sides grasp the thread of common interests, China and the U.S. can explore a path of new partnership in which major powers live in harmony, engage in positive interaction, and achieve mutually beneficial cooperation. His remarks elicited positive feedback from many in the U.S. In a recent meeting with former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, Xi called for more positive energy for the China-U.S. partnership. During his visit to Russia, Xi stressed the importance of developing bilateral relations between the two countries. China's strategic partnership of coordination with Russia has become the closest, most dynamic, and most profound between major powers, and developing positive relations with Russia is always a priority for China's foreign affairs. Xi attended the second meeting of the dialogue mechanism between the Chinese and Russian ruling parties and had extensive and in-depth discussions with leaders of various parties in Russia, further strengthening Sino-Russian relations. Xi highly values relations with developing countries. He once said that we would take consolidating and developing relations with developing countries as the aim and basis of China's foreign policy. In South Africa, Xi attended the 4th plenary session of the China-South Africa Binational Commission, looking forward, together with the South African side, to a bright future for bilateral cooperation. In a speech delivered at a seminar marking the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, Xi underscored China's friendship with Africa, highlighting that a friend in need is a friend indeed. In Saudi Arabia, he stated that a more prosperous and open China would bring great development opportunities to the Middle East and the Gulf countries. In Chile, speaking of the relationship over the next decade, he proposed that China and Latin America should be good partners in the fields of politics, economics, culture, and international affairs. Xi has been pragmatic and efficient on the international stage. In one single day, while attending celebrations for the 150th anniversary of the unification of Italy, Xi exchanged ideas with leaders from more than 20 countries and international organizations. During his visit to Germany and 4 other European countries, Xi attended 5 signing ceremonies for economic and trade agreements and 6 economic and trade forums, and signed 93 cooperation agreements involving a total of US $7.4 billion. Xi has also emphasized the role of cultural exchanges in the building of a harmonious world. Addressing attendance at the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2009, he remarked that through exchanges between different cultures, people from different countries had come to know Confucius from China, Goethe from Germany, and Shakespeare from Britain. Promoting international cultural exchanges created important momentum for human progress and peaceful development, he said. During his visit to Russia, he stood side by side with Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin as they launched the Year of the Chinese Language in Russia. He said in his address, "Culture is enriched, hearts are joined together, and friendship is deepened through exchanges." Xi has a talent for drawing wisdom from Chinese culture and presenting ideas clearly in a straightforward and humorous way. During his U.S. visit, he borrowed a line from the theme song of the popular Chinese TV drama Monkey King to diffuse the gravity of the bilateral issue. "The road is right under our feet," he said, when describing the unprecedented relations between China and the U.S., presenting the image of a confident and forward-looking Chinese leader. When facing questions about human rights in China, he is forthright. There is no best, only better. He takes the view that every country's situation is different and every path is different. Whether the shoe fits or not, only the wearer knows. Amity between peoples is the key to sound relations between states. Xi has said the level of state-to-state friendship depends on relations between their peoples. He once lightheartedly remarked to foreign ministry officials on a diplomatic trip that life lay in motion and diplomacy lay in activity. In other words, diplomats should travel widely and make more bosom friends. During his visit to Laos, Xi arranged a special meeting with the late Lao leader, Khunim Phulsane's children, who had lived and studied in Beijing. He joined them in recalling their days at Beijing's Baiyi School. He said that Phulsane's second son bore the nickname Chubby Boy. This made everybody laugh. During his U.S. visit, Xi traveled to Iowa to join a dozen old acquaintances for tea and a chat at a house in an Iowa farm community. Most of the people at the gathering were friends Xi had made during a 1985 visit to Iowa as a member of an agricultural research delegation. In Russia, he visited a children's center to see Chinese students there who had been affected by the devastating Wenchuan earthquake of 2008. He expressed his gratitude to the staff. He kicked off a game of Gaelic football in Dublin's Croke Park when visiting Ireland and watched an NBA game in the United States. The media welcomed such activities as evidence of his cordial image. He succeeded in demonstrating not only his personal charisma and bearing, but also the image and charm of China, an overseas media outlet commented. Son of a revolutionary family, a good husband. Xi Jinping's father, Xi Jinping, was a party and state leader. At the age of 21, the senior Xi served as chairman of the government of the Shanxi Gansu border region, a CPC revolutionary base in the 1930s, and was called by Mao Zedong a leader of the people. Xi Jinping began to suffer political persecution in 1962, which continued for 16 years. However, he never gave in to adversity, but tried his best to help clear the names of others who had been persecuted. Once the cultural revolution had come to an end, he served as first secretary of the CPC Guangdong Provincial Committee, at the forefront of China's reform and opening up drive, making an important contribution to the establishment of the special economic zones in the province and their rapid development. Xi's mother, Qi Xin, nearly 90 years of age, is also a veteran revolutionary and party member. A dutiful son, Xi often strolls and chats with his mother, holding her by the hand, and regularly makes time to dine with her. The Xi family has a tradition of being strict with children and living a simple life. Xi Jinping believed that if a senior party official wanted to discipline others, he should first begin with himself and his family. Xi Jinping and his younger brother used to wear clothes and shoes handed down from their elder sisters. After Xi Jinping became a leading official, his mother called a family meeting to ban the siblings from engaging in any business in the areas where Xi Jinping worked. Xi Jinping has carried on his family's tradition and has been strict with his own family. Wherever he worked, he told his family not to do business there or do anything in his name. Otherwise, he would be ruthless. Whether in Fujian, Zhejiang, or Shanghai, he pledged at official meetings that no one was allowed to seek personal benefit through making use of his name and welcomed supervision in this regard. Xi married Peng Li Yuan, a renowned folk song singer and popular soprano singer of opera. In 1980, Peng caused quite a stir when attending a national art performance in Beijing, representing Shandong province. She was the first person in China to obtain a master's degree in national vocal music. She is a representative of contemporary national vocal music and one of the founders of the School of National Vocal Music. Her most famous works include On the Fields of Hope, People from My Village, We Are Yellow River, and Mount Taishan, and Rivers and Mountains. She has won many top awards in national vocal music competitions, such as China's Golden Disc Award and the State Audio Video Award. She has played leading roles in Chinese national operas, such as The White-Haired Girl, Grief at Dawn, The Party's Daughter, and Ode to Heroine Mulan, among others. She has also won the highest theatrical award in China, the Plum Blossom Prize, and the highest performance art award, the Wenhua Prize. Peng attributes her accomplishments to the people and said that she should contribute all her talent to the people. Over more than 3 decades, she has given hundreds of free performances for people from all walks of life across the country. These included performances in impoverished mountain areas, coastal areas, oil fields, mines, and barracks, as well as in deserts and on the snowy plateau. She also performed in Wenchuan after the devastating earthquake of 2008, in Beijing's Xiaotangshan after the SARS outbreak in 2003, and in flood-hit Jiujiang in Jiangxi province in 1998. To better introduce Chinese national vocal music and national opera to the outside world, Peng was the first to play a solo concert in Singapore in 1993. She also has represented China in performances in more than 50 countries and regions, becoming a world-renowned cultural ambassador for China. She produced and played the leading role in the opera Ode to Heroine Mulan, which was performed at New York City's Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts and at the Vienna State Opera House in Austria. Peng is currently shifting her focus from performance to education, aiming to train new singers and produce new masterpieces. Peng is very much devoted to work for the public good. She is a WHO Goodwill Ambassador for tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS, a national AIDS prevention advocate, and an ambassador both for the prevention of juvenile delinquency and for tobacco control. At a recent World AIDS Day activity raising awareness about AIDS, she was called Mama Peng by AIDS orphans. She and Peng fell in love in 1986 and married the same year. Although they were often separated by work commitments, they have understood and supported each other continuously and shown their devotion to each other. As a member of the People's Liberation Army, Peng was often tasked with staging performances in remote areas. These tours sometimes kept her on the road for 2 to 3 months at a time. Always concerned about his wife, she would phone her before bedtime almost every night, no matter how late it was. On Chinese New Year's Eve, Peng would often perform at the Spring Festival Gala, presented by China Central Television. Xi would make dumplings while watching the show and wait for her return to have a family feast. In the eyes of Peng, Xi is a good husband and a good father. She always shows care and consideration for him. Peng takes every opportunity to be together with her husband, cooking dishes of different styles for him. To Peng, Xi is both a unique and a very ordinary person. He favors homemade cooking in the Shanxi and Shandong cuisines, and also enjoys a drink during parties or with friends. He likes swimming, mountaineering, and watching basketball, football, and boxing matches. Sometimes he stays up late watching sports on television. The couple have a daughter, Xi Mingzi. Mingzi in Chinese connotes living an honest life and being a useful person to society, which is their expectation for her, and also a symbol of their simple family style. End of the Governance of China, Volume 1.